Good morning, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andrew. Thank you for joining as we are about to discuss a very important topical matter. Now, this morning, we are going to talk about our Jamaican rowdy and unruly politicians, right? We have been seeing some spats there in Parliament, in the Jamaican Parliament in recent times, and people have been sounding the alarm that something is amiss here, something is amok, something is not smelling right in Jamaica. And I think that we might be heading down the pathway that Haiti has taken, right? And remember now that Haiti's problem did not just, arise overnight. It has been an ongoing problem. And one of the things that I have been saying on this channel is that the problem is not only due to external forces or external influences, but it's also due to internal forces. And oftentimes, our enemies, more of our enemies are from within. And we've got to understand that. And sometimes we think that our enemies are outside of our homes, but a lot of times our enemies are within. Do you know that we are our greatest enemies? A lot of times we are the ones who do things that seriously affect us. For example, if you are in an argument with someone, if you don't take that person seriously, if you don't take on that person, then you're not going to give that person power over you, right? To make your feelings, become, awash with negativity and depression, right? So it is for us to understand that we need to have self-control. And a lot of us, including myself, lack self-control, and we've got to learn how to control our lives, how to control our emotions, and how to control our very thoughts and understanding of the people and the world at large. Now, in recent times, we have seen where our Jamaican politicians are behaving as if they are monarchs, as if they control, they run the show, even though we know, I have told you also on this channel, that they do not run the show, right? That they are mere puppets being used by the U.S. military-industrial complex and also, in Jamaica's context, the private sector organization of Jamaica. And I say this to say that some of you think that Prime Minister Holness, for example, had the power to fire Warmington. What world are you living in? Do you think that Prime Minister Holness has that right to fire Warmington, a member of parliament, an elected member of parliament? He does not have that right? Until he calls election and the people decides to vote him out of office, then Prime Minister Holness does not have the right to actually, fire the member of parliament. So when we're hearing, oh, and Andrew Holness fires, Andrew Holness has not fired Warmington, Everett Warmington, and you know that, right? He does not have that power. And why would you give Andrew Holness that power? Why would you even allow him entertain that thought in his head when already we are seeing where Andrew Holness is behaving like a reigning monarch, right? And I first became acquainted with Andrew Holness, but let me just pause a second here before we speak about Andrew Holness, because it's important that we understand that Andrew Holness, his head seems to be swelling and he's not understanding the world in which he lives. He thinks he's understanding it, but because he's so mentally mad, he's so drunk by the wine of power, the Babylonian wine of power, that it does not understand that he is treading on dangerous grounds. All right, but let me just share this brief video with you of Michael Manley when he was actually demitting office in Jamaica in 1992, I believe. Was it 92? Yeah, when he retired from politics, from parliament. Now, Michael Manley was one of Jamaica's prime ministers and a world-renowned politician too, because he was the champion of the new economic international order, right? And he was well respected among first world colleagues and also third world colleagues, for his intellect and for his charisma and for his excellent diction. So let us look at Michael Manley right now, speaking in Parliament as he vacates the office that he held for so many years. Let me see if I could get you to, I need to share my screen so that you can look at Michael Manley and you can hear what he has to say. All right, so let's get there now, and I'm going to do that.
A very rare and extraordinary privilege to have been allowed to serve in this chamber. And I must say to have made many, many friends on both sides of the aisle. As I go, I ask two things. One, I think you would do well always to listen to and be receptive to criticism. Because we have to learn, we have to improve, we're not perfect. And many criticisms are welcome. But at the same time, I would urge you, if you hold on to the simple guiding truth that you have one mission in the end, and that is service. No other mission. He who wants power for himself does not deserve it. And funny enough, he who dedicates his life to service through power will probably depart with some honor.
Michael Manley died age 72.
Well, yeah, so that was a speech that was given by Michael Manley as he retired from official office, from his official position as Prime Minister of Jamaica after he accepted that mandate in 1989 when he won the election. For those of you who do not know, Michael Manley was a noted socialist, right? And he led a quasi-socialist revolution in Jamaica during the 1970s. And he was actually toppled. Well, I shouldn't say he was toppled, but he was destabilized. His government was destabilized by the United States of America during their CIA destabilization effort. Destabilization effort. Why is that word so hard to come off my tongue? Right. So during the 1970s, the CIA destabilized Jamaica because it thought that it was going communist and that it was going in the same direction that Cuba was heading or had headed in previous years. Now, I just pointed out that, but Michael Manley's first point as he demitted office, as he left, as he retired from power, was that, our leaders need to be good listeners, and they need also to be able to accept constructive criticisms. And even if sometimes the criticisms are destructive, you also have to learn to tolerate them. I'm not saying now that you should accept destructive criticisms, but you must be able to tolerate them because that is the nature of the job. Recently I was listening to a teacher from Jamaica who was talking about the expletives that are normal in Jamaica's classroom. And the children come to the classroom with all of those, what we call bad words, right? And swear words, expletives, right? Used in the classroom. Some of them being hurled at teachers, and teachers have to become accustomed to listening to those, type of, foul language. Yet right now, is it a nice situation? No, but it's a part of the job. And students sometimes tell you things that are very painful, very hurtful, but do we just walk outside of the classroom like that? No. In recent times, Andrew Holness, the current Prime Minister of Jamaica, walked out of Parliament because he was being challenged by the opposition leader, that his wife, Juliet Holness, who is the current Speaker of the House, was being under scrutiny in terms of how is it that she is the wife of the current president and she's Speaker of the House. That is a conflict of interest. And Andrew Holness did not take kindly to that. Now, at first, I thought that Mr. Mark Golding, the opposition leader, was attacking him. He was using that argument in terms of his wife being the Speaker of the House to begin his speech. But I understand that no, he had made most of his speech about the budget. He had responded to Nigel Clark's budget, or the budget coming from the incumbent government. And then he decided, whilst he was now about to end, to deal with the case of Juliet, what's her name, Holness, being the Speaker of the House and being also the Prime Minister's wife, and the conflict of interest therein, demonstrated. Now, one of the things that I must say, our politicians are hypocrites, and we've got to understand that. And we understand that the PNP, through Philip Paulwell, had endorsed, and Philip Paulwell is an oppositional leader. So he had endorsed with a lot of the other oppositional leaders, including Mark Golding, Juliet Holness's position as Speaker of the House. So this is not something that was new to them. This was something that they endorsed initially. So why are they having a problem now? Now, yes, we can make a decision and then we find that, it was a wrong decision. And that is true. And I think, therefore, that if it is true that the PNP thought that they were making the right decision in having Juliet Holness, Andrew Holness's wife, become the Speaker of the House, and now they have changed their minds, right? They have walked on the road of Damascus and they've got to change their minds, then that is something that is human and that is normal. What we should look at are the arguments that are presented. And I think that Prime Minister Holness should have sat, and his cabinet members should have sat and listened to the arguments posed by the opposition leader, and then they could present counter arguments. That is what freedom of expression and a free parliament is, right? It's not just about hearing what you want to hear, right? But it seems to me that Andrew Holness seems to think that he is this superior stock, that he controls what happens in Jamaica. And the fact that the United States is using him as one of the point men, right, of establishing a presidential council in Haiti, he thinks that is very important. And last year, the Miami Herald did carry an article entitled, let me see if I could see it here in the Miami article. Well, I'm not able to pull up the Miami article because I'm not subscribed also, but let us see what the Nationwide, and Nationwide is a news and radio program in Jamaica, radio station, I should say, in Jamaica. And my understanding is that Cliff Hughes, who is the president, the CEO of this radio station, he is pro the JLP, he's pro the Jamaican Labour Party, that Andrew Holness heads. Now, this is Andrew Holness in the middle here. He is the current Prime Minister of Jamaica. And here we have on Nationwide saying that Miami Herald says Holness's Jamaica is a mini superpower in the Caribbean. Now, I don't understand that, and that was carried last year, as the radio station here suggests and the newspaper here online, that we have been described, that Jamaica has been described as a mini superpower in the Caribbean. And I don't know what mini superpower Jamaica is, right? Because we have not even gotten our economy together. And how are we going to become a mini superpower? Because we are aligned with the policies of the United States and the agendas of the United Nations and the United States. And I noticed that after the pandemic, and during the pandemic also, that Andrew Holness, the current Prime Minister of Jamaica, has been running around with Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada. And many Canadians are suggesting that Trudeau is a dictator, or he's pushing the country towards totalitarianism, right? And this is his friend, right? And they're all running around, and Justin Trudeau is going to Jamaica to spend time with the Jamaican Prime Minister, and he's going all around the world. In fact, I think when this guy here, that's the Prime Minister Andrew Holness, was invited to the G9 meeting, which no other third world member had ever, no other Prime Minister from the third world or president has been invited to the G9 meeting, to my understanding. But it was Justin Trudeau who actually invited Prime Minister Holness, Andrew Holness, to that meeting. And afterwards, Justin Trudeau was invited, or has been invited several times, to CARICOM meetings, right? He's not understanding that these world leaders are using him to carry out their agenda. And just a warning to Mr. Andrew Holness. Let me say something to you, my friend, right? The people of the world, the leaders of the world are using you, and eventually they will spit you out of their mouths. And as I've suggested on this channel, I think that Ariel Henry perhaps would give you a lesson in that. But not only Ariel Henry, you had a mentor in the person of Mr. Edward Seaga. And Mr. Edward Seaga was former Prime Minister of Jamaica also, who also was a pro-US candidate when he was up against Michael Manley. Michael Manley was the person I showed you recently who made a speech while he was that brief clipping from TikTok when he was actually leaving the Jamaican Parliament. Now, Edward Seaga was used, right? And he was spat out after he was used in 1989. And do you know that Mr. Seaga never became prime minister after being used? Never. It was almost like a curse was up on him. And Mr. Seaga was very talented and far more superior in education and skills, and had a broader skill set base than what Andrew Holness has. All right? Andrew Holness is more fluff and he's not substance. Right? He behaves as if he's this great guy and he's this, excellent statesman, but he's not. He has not yet mastered that craft. Because the standard has gone so low, people in Jamaica elevate him. But if you are to look at the broad picture, and if you understand what politics is all about, or what it should be, and what respectable and respectful statesmen are, or stateswomen, then you'd understand that this guy here, he falls very, very low. Now, the newspapers, no, not the newspaper, but the online radio station says here, the radio station online, the Miami Herald's Emmy Award-winning reporter Jacqueline Charles has described Jamaica under the leadership of Prime Minister Andrew Holness as a mini superpower in the Caribbean, right? So his head here is swollen. Don't you see his head looks bigger, right? Because he feels that he is the guy and he is very, very important. Charles, in a glowing article published on Wednesday, charted Jamaica's journey from a nation struggling with high debt to a model of economic resilience. And let me say something to you, those who don't know Jamaica. We are having right now, we are currently experiencing brain drain. And brain drain, I should say, that is unprecedented, right? I was listening to a political commentator yesterday, and that's a Jamaican political commentator and activist and, and human rights activist. I think his name is George Luke, right? And he suggested that he was speaking to a principal from a very, elite school in Jamaica, very good school in Jamaica, secondary school in Jamaica. And they said that principal told him that 35 teachers left his school. 35 teachers have left his school in recent times, right? It means, therefore, that Jamaica's economy is not doing well. Let's not talk about the nurses and the doctors who are packing up and leaving, and the United States is just gobbling them up, right? Our teachers are world-renowned, and they are known to be excellent teachers, and so are our nurses and our doctors. Now, one of the things that I find very interesting about Jamaica is that when the teachers are in Jamaica, and the nurses to a lesser degree, we tend to, the state tends to blame them that they're not educating the nation's children in the way our nation's children should be educated. But the social and economic problems in Jamaica are much taller than the teachers can tolerate, right? Teachers are not going to be able to solve the problems, the socioeconomic problems of Jamaica. The politicians have to work together along with the teachers to solve that problems. And hence, they have to implement effective policies that will be able to effectuate laws and policies that will help teachers to have some sort of order within their educational domain. Outside of that, teachers cannot go to school and solve the entrenched problems, right? The intractable problems, the intractable socioeconomic problems of Jamaica. They're not going to be able to do that. But the irony is, when they go to the US and countries like Canada and the UK, that they're always going back for more. They can't have enough of Jamaican teachers. They can't have enough of Jamaican workers. And years ago, when I was doing an internship in Washington, D.C., there was, I was working at the what you call it now, the public education department there in Washington, D.C., the DCPS, the District of Columbia Public Schools, and while I was there, we were talking to lots of people from different countries, and this African-American dude, he said that, his first encounter with a Jamaican, he was working for his boss, and this Jamaican lady was the boss's secretary. And the superiority of her work in terms of being able to do shorthand and to craft, to draft letters and so on, was something that was not typical of the normal American secretary, right? Because of the training that she had received in Jamaica and that she took to the United States of America. So oftentimes when the Jamaican elites they're suggesting that our population, they don't have the skills for the job. It is because they don't have jobs down there to give the people. They are bankrupt, right? And they are bereft of any effective ideas, all right, to grow the economy. So what they do now, they begin to blame the people that they are not bright enough, they don't have the skills, right? But yet still, foreigners from the United States, a first world country, and from Canada, and from the UK, and from all around the world are just gobbling up our teachers and are having a wonderful time and are using them to educate foreign students, when these teachers could have remained. If we had just built up our economy, they could have remained in Jamaica and they could have empowered our students. But instead, they are empowering all the students. And don't let me talk about the fact that the experiences of our Jamaican teachers in America's public school, where that's a messy situation, where many of them are culturally shocked. They receive this cultural shock when they have to deal with American students, and the fact that they don't understand that they're responsible for their work, right? And the sort of, inferior conditions that they have to work with in terms of, listening to students cursing them out and other things, right? Not doing their homework, yet not being held accountable, wanting grades that they don't deserve, right? Teachers have expressed their frustrations, but instead of leaving, they're getting a better salary. And they're able, it might not be excellent, but they're able to carve out a path, right, for growth. In Jamaica, they weren't able to do that. So Andrew Holness and the Miami Herald, I'm not sure what this mini superpower in the Caribbean, here is it. It's not in Jamaica. I think that Jamaica is heading on the same path like Haiti, and Haiti is by no stretch of the imagination any mini superpower. They might be in terms of revolutionary spirit, but that's all. Now, new commercial, and look at what they're saying now, what that makes the economy mini superpower. New commercial and high-end condominiums are rising from the dirt. The minimum wage is going up. The minimum wage, please. Unemployment is the lowest it's been in years, and tourism, the engine of the economy, is once more booming. Now, how can we have an economy that is built on tourism, expected to be a mini superpower, when we understand that tourism is neo-slavery? And I'm not suggesting here that tourism is not important, just like we talk about militarism versus having a military. Militarism is when you're now using the military, right, instead of using diplomacy, you're going to use the military to get what you want, right? To negotiate. And that's what the United States is using now. Militarism and imperialism, these are not two words we want to hear, right? Because they are destructive to an economy, and tourism is one. Yes, we should have tourists and welcome tourists to our island, but we cannot develop our island based on tourism proceeds. We know that the monies do not remain in these host countries, that they are repatriated, right? And we have to understand that tourism is not going to bring us to greener pastures. And Jamaica has been doing tourism since the 1950s. When are you going to open up your eyes to see that it's not working and that it is not going to build your economy? We have in Jamaica one of the poorest economies in the Caribbean region, right? And we've got to come to grips with that. So I'm not sure where this nonsensical article came up that was written in the Miami Herald is coming from. But we know that's coming from the U.S. military-industrial complex, because they were actually preparing Jamaicans and Jamaica to be heading up that Haitian Presidential Council. That's the sterling appraisal of Jamaica by Miami Herald's Caribbean correspondent Jacqueline Charles. The Miami Herald is Florida's most influential broadsheet newspaper, right? So this is what they're talking about, and they are giving Prime Minister Holness a lot of praise and adoration. And he thinks of himself, I should say, as a kingly character, right? There's a musician in Jamaica who sung Christ in his kingly character. And I'm saying now, Andrew Holness in his kingly character, right? He thinks that he is the reigning monarch, and Jamaicans should respect him and should not criticize him, should not challenge his power and his authority. Now, look at what is happening in Parliament now, and you will see what Andrew Holness has done. And this happened, was it on Tuesday or Wednesday, I think, when they were the opposition was giving his response, making his response to the budget debate that was given by the Minister of Finance of Jamaica, Dr. Nigel Clark. Now, let's share that, image, that video, and you will see what happened and what the monarch, Andrew Holness, did, right? Because he is the reigning Jamaican monarch. So those of you who are going to get rid of the Queen or the King, well, the King now, King Charles III, note that Andrew Holness will supplant him, will be his successor. Listen to the opposition and look at what Andrew Holness is going to do.
Committees from the opposition has weakened that mechanism of holding government to account. The maneuvers to delay the tabling of reports from the Auditor General and the Integrity Commission remains a contentious matter, especially since the legal opinion on which this delay is purportedly based has been withheld from parliamentarians and the wider public. When the former speaker was forced to resign as a result of an Integrity Commission investigation, the move to replace her with the wife of the Prime Minister, so that the head of Parliament is now the spouse of the head of government, really does not sit well with the tradition that the Speaker must act independently of the government of the day. The Speaker
Prime Minister Andrew Holness,
and must act
opposition leader, Mark Willoughby.
Mr. Speaker,
Right. So the Prime Minister walked out of Parliament, the Jamaican Parliament, because he thought that Mark Golding, the opposition leader, who was actually critiquing the fact that his wife, being the Speaker of the House in Jamaica's Parliament, is a conflict of interest, and perhaps it should not be. Now, whether or not Mark Golding is a hypocrite and might have, he and his other colleagues, that's PNP colleagues, might have endorsed Juliet's capacity as Speaker of the House, that is beyond the point right now. What we're talking about is that It's his right to say. He's making a speech, and I understand that he had already responded to the budget and was now ending his budget presentation by, suggesting that, by, cementing that argument, right? That how could you have your wife be the Speaker of the House? Yes, no, it was Andrew Holness's responsibility now, and the opportunity, I should say, for him to make his counter argument. So listen to the argument posed by the opposition speaker, that's Mark Golding, and then he should have stood up, and then he should have debunked the opposition leader's arguments and his comments. But instead of doing that, this little boy who thinks that he is, the reigning monarch, decides to get up and leave the Jamaican parliament, in which he is tasked to do the Jamaican business and to, vouch for the Jamaican people, to represent their interest in parliament and to actually solve problems by, implementing effective policies. But he decided that he was going to walk out of parliament, right? Now, that is unprecedented in Jamaican history, in the sense that normally it is the oppositional leaders who walk out of parliament because they are not the reigning government, the incumbent, right? But Andrew Holness represents the incumbent. He represents the government that is in charge. And he cannot be walking out of parliament like that because he hears something that, makes him emotionally charged. And this is perhaps one of the reasons why maybe Juliet Holness should resign immediately. Because yes, it is his wife, and he's going to get emotionally charged over his wife. And that is why many corporations do not allow husbands and wives to work in the same organization or with the same organization, because it creates a lot of conflict of interest. And whenever one of the spouses is corrected, then the other is going to perhaps respond in an emotional manner. So it's best not to have family members or spouses working within the same organization. But we live in a democracy, and Andrew Holness and his wife are working in parliament. But let's be fair now, perhaps he should not be Speaker of the House. Because when there are matters that perhaps affect the Prime Minister, which the Speaker of the House should be like an umpire, one who is trying to see where the fairness, where the balance lies, and trying to be fair. If there is some spat in the House, then she's not going to necessarily be fair, right? Because unbalanced, because she's going to definitely be on the side of her husband. She's going to want to protect him, right? That is just normal human behavior. We don't have to do any research on that. It's common sense. So I don't think, in light of that, she's an effective person. She's a qualified person. She's more than qualified to be Speaker of the House. So this is not about attacking women. Sometimes we also look at these very narrow arguments and say, well, because she's a woman, you're attacking her. No, Juliet Holness is one of the most qualified members of parliament in the Jamaican parliament. When you listen to her speak, and she seems also to have a grasp and understanding of her job, the role and the functions and the responsibilities that come with her job. I think she does. I have listened to her on many occasions, and she's bossy and she's sassy, right? But it comes with that also role. She's among men, and some of whom are very rough and gruff. So she has to be able to deal with them, and she has to stand her ground as a woman. So I am here able to say to you that I am proud that as she's representing women, and that women also should be put in that position as Speaker of the House. So this doesn't have anything to do with Juliet's gender, right? But it has more to do with the fact that she is standing in a position in which her husband is the head of parliament, right? I do not think that that is something that is ethically right. ethical. It's not ethical, right? It's not morally ethical, should I say, right? You're going to have a conflict of interest if you are going to have your husband as head of parliament, and then you are going to be the Speaker of the House. Something I find to be interesting. Now, Andrew Holness, the day afterwards, when he was responding to, after he had walked out, and now he was making response to Mark Golding's, the opposition leader's budget debate. Now, he brought his mother there to Parliament, and I'm like, oh, so where were the boys? Andrew, where were the boys? It seemed like he wanted to have brought the entire family to Parliament to show them that you have a family and that you have a wife, right? And she is, the one of the most important elements in your life. And we know that. And I think that Jamaicans should commend Andrew Holness for the fact that he has a visible wife and he's not running around with many women. And we have not heard a lot of scandals or any scandals at all about his, about his personal love affairs, as we often hear in the world of politics. But, so we see there are a nuclear family that seems to be cemented and seems to be stable. We can use the word seems. We don't know what happened behind the scene, but based on what we're seeing, Andrew Holness has 2 sons, and Juliet has been his wife since, for all the time that I know. In fact, he says that she was his girlfriend in high school, in university, because both of them went to the University of the West Indies in Kingston, and then they both went into politics. So they have been together for many years, right? Which is something to be envied and something we should commend them for doing. It's an example to our society, in which we have, in the Jamaican society, you have a lot of unstable, right, familial relationships where, many times our fathers are not present, and you have single mother homes, right, in which a mother alone raises a child. So let's congratulate, and even Michael Manley had 5 wives, Mr. Sierra had 2 wives, I don't know a lot about the previous prime ministers, but we know that, these people had, Mr. Patterson, I think he was married at one point, and afterwards he was divorced. I can't remember. So we've had, situations in which our politicians were not as faithful to their significant others. But Andrew Holness is such an example, and we should commend him as far as that is concerned. Now, I just wanted to say something to you, that these prime ministers and presidents do not run the show. And I've been saying that to you often. And let me end here with this article that was published on the World Socialist website, right? The World Socialist website. And this article was published from October 15th, 2016. Let me share this with you just to end here by saying that these politicians do not run the show, but they are just mere puppets used by economic power elites. Now, this is an article, and the title of the article is Citigroup whose Obama's 2000 chose, not whose, but chose Obama's 2008 cabinet. Who chose it? Citigroup. It's not even Obama who chose his candidates, but it's Citigroups. And I understand that in 2006 or 2007 was when the Wall Street called the White House and told them who they wanted to be president. And Obama was the guy. So when we think that Obama came up because he was selected by you, you might have elected him, yes, when he went on the ballot sheet, right? Give him his credit. He did a very good job of, selling himself in 2007 to the American populace, and eventually he became the president. But you must understand that you did not select him, right? Most of your presidents are first selected, and then afterwards you elect them. And even if they think that the bosses, on Wall Street and these economic elites think that having elected them, you the people, if they think that we the people have not elected the right ones, they will do everything to block that person from becoming president or prime minister. And we've got to understand that. This is what is happening now in America. Citigroup chose Obama. So 1 month before the presidential election of 2008, the giant Wall Street bank Citigroup submitted to the Obama campaign a list of its preferred candidates for cabinet positions in an Obama administration, right? And you might say suggested. Yes, they suggested, and a lot of times the president has to go with it. This list corresponds almost exactly to the eventual composition of Barack Obama's cabinet. So sometimes they can't make it look so obvious, so they might, delist or take off 2 of the people or so on, and, just to suggest or to make it seem as if the president is in charge when he or she is not. The memorandum revealed by WikiLeaks in a recent document released from the email account of John Podesta, who currently serves as Hillary Clinton's campaign chair, was written by Michael Froman, who was an executive with Citigroup and currently serves as U.S. Trade Representative. The email is dated October 6, 2008, and bears the subject line lists. It went to Podesta a month before he was named chairman of President-elect Obama's transition team. The email was sent at the height of the financial meltdown that erupted after the bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers on September 15th. And you can see why these guys are doing it, because they know, not Citigroup, but Wall Street, guys in Wall Street know that the problem of 2008 that, or 2007 that caused the collapse, the financial meltdown in America, was due to their policies, was due to Wall Street's policies. So they don't want people to go there who might unpack everything that has happened and expose them. And that is why they have to select the president, and they have to select the people who form the president's cabinet, right? Because this is how the world operates, and you've got to understand that. And many of you come and you're still asking, why? Why is the United States in Haiti? All right? I think you've got to also think deeper than you're thinking. And you've got to unpack a lot of the imperial undertakings of the US since it came on the world stage, right? And some of the people are asking, why is the US in Haiti? Are the same people who should be asking, why was there slavery, right? Why did the United States practice slavery? Why was there slavery in the world, right? You've got to ask yourself these questions too. And then when you've answered that question in terms of why was there slavery, why did the US practice slavery, then I think you will probably get closer to why the United States is in Haiti and is also occupying other countries, has military bases in over 800 countries in the world, right? Perhaps that will give you an understanding. Even as Citigroup and its Wall Street counterparts were dragging the US and world economy into its deepest crisis since the 1930s, they remained, as the email shows, the real power behind the facade of American democracy and its electoral process, right? So then you have to understand that these people do not run the show, right? Look at this. Citigroup's recommendations came just 3 days after then-President George W. Bush signed into law the Troubled Asset Relief Programs, because it is a continuity of government. So this is just coming 3 days short, or 3 days after, which allocated $7,000 billion in taxpayer money to rescue the largest Wall Street banks. The single biggest beneficiary was Citigroup, which was given $45 billion in cash in the form of a government stock purchase plus a $306 billion government guarantee to back up its worthless mortgage-related assets. That's why they have to select these people, gentle folks. They've got to do it, because if they don't do it, then people are going to reveal the truth. And the purpose of these guys on Wall Street, and in Jamaica's case, the private sector organization in Jamaica, the PSOJ, is to cover up, right? Their main agenda is to cover up what they do. Because if you, the citizens, know what they're doing, there's going to be a revolution. But many people do not know and do not want to also know. So the paper continues to report, then presidential candidate Barack Obama played a critical political role in shepherding the massively unpopular bank bailout through Congress. The September financial crash convinced decisive sections of the US corporate financial elite that the Democratic candidate of hope and change would be better positioned to contain popular opposition to the bailout than his Republican rival, Senator John McCain of Arizona. The reason why they chose Barack Obama was because they know that he would be able to contain, because his whole campaign of hope and change, and the fact that he is Black, and we thought he was a Black, and there are some wonderful qualities of Black people, right? And Black people were going to, you know, shepherd us into a period of prosperity. Now, people tend to think that, oh, you know, I've listened to a lot of Black people say, oh, white people are so evil, white people are evil. The Bible says the human heart, it did not say the European heart or the African heart or the Asian heart. The human heart, above all things, is desperately wicked, right? So the European is not more wicked than the Black man, right? If the Black man has similar power, he's going to do the same thing, right? And we should only see what Obama has done. And many people say, oh, Obama, yeah, because he had this moral, compass, and he just had to go with the flow because he was barricaded. Now, if you have morals, just like Frederick Douglass, when Frederick Douglass was the ambassador, the US ambassador to Haiti, when he saw that the United States was trying to exploit Haiti, what did he do? He gave up his position. And can you imagine Frederick Douglass in those days? It was a high position for him, especially the fact that he was an ex-slave. And to be promoted, to have been promoted to that level of becoming US diplomat and the US ambassador to Haiti was something that was very prestigious for him. But when he saw what the US was doing to Haiti, he decided that he would do the honorable thing, and he gave up his position. Barack Obama could have done the same. As president, Obama not only funneled trillions of dollars to the banks, he saw to it that not a single leading Wall Street executive faced prosecution for the orgy of speculation and swindling that led to the financial collapse and Great Recession. And he personally intervened to block legislation capping executive pay at bailed out firms. Just for those of you who are still Obama, in the Obama frenzy and the Obama mania, you're suffering from this Obama mania, right? You have been maddened and drunken with the wine of this Barack Hussein Obama. The same furtive and corrupt process is underway in relation to a Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump administration, right? The same thing, whether it's Hillary Clinton or it's Donald Trump. Remember, though, they choose the one that they think will be able to hide and cover up, right? To cover up what they're doing. I still don't know why they would choose Donald Trump. And maybe that's why they're against him now, because he's not trying to help them to cover up. Because he talks a lot, right? He chats a lot. This is his weakness, that Donald Trump, not because he's a morally ethical person, right? He's a morally upright person, but because he chats a lot and he reveals too much of their secrets. And he is a tit for tat guy, right? So if you hit him, he's going to hit you bad, right? And I think that's what Hillary Clinton and Obama's, they know how to play the game. Froman's email is one of many thousands released by WikiLeaks from the account of Podesta. Those communications, such as the Froman email, which exposed who really rules America, have been virtually ignored by the media. The pro-democratic party New Republic called attention to it in an email published Friday, but the story has received little, if any, further coverage. Right? So this is what it's all about, and you've got to understand that, right? If the 2008 Podesta emails are any indication, the next 4 years of public policy are being hashed out right now behind closed doors, wrote New Republic author David Dale. And if liberals want to have an impact on that process, waiting until after the election will be too late. And there is this mantra, let's wait and see what Biden is going to do, or let's wait and see what Donald Trump is going to do, or let's wait and see what Andrew Holness is going to do. But when they get into power, it would have been too late, because the policies would have long been formed behind closed doors, right? When you and I are not privy to, and then when they come in and you see wars upon wars and other financial collapse, then you begin to ask yourself, why are these things happening? Because the large majority of them were orchestrated without your knowing what was happening, right? So it's time for us now to grow up, and Jamaica needs to understand that it's not running the show, and that we don't want to go down the route of Haiti. But Americans also have to open up their eyes to see that they're not running the show either. They are the president, their elected officials, their so-called elected officials, I should say, are not running the show, right? Because it's not the best man, let the best man win, right? And this whole system of meritocracy that the US talks about is a sham, right? Because whether it's white or black or Asians, many of the people who are there are not the most effective leaders, and they did not get their position based on meritocracy, right? You like people, white Americans like to think that they are the symbols, right? And the examples of intellectual capacities and the skills that they're skillful and they have all of the tools, right? That will lead America into greener pastures, but they often do not, right? Just like you have incompetent Black people, you have a lot of incompetent so-called white people, right? And many of them are not as bright as they present themselves to be. They like to think that they're bright, and I like to tell them that they are not as bright as they project. They can't fool me, they probably fool themselves, but it is for us to understand that our prime ministers and our presidents do not run the show. And we are the ones who've got to educate ourselves. If we had gleaned what we should have gleaned over the years, our presidents and prime ministers would not have amassed, I should say, unto themselves the power that they have so done. Wake up, wake up, wake up, and begin to understand that the only way that you're going to be able to stop tyranny from happening in our societies is through education, educating yourselves and educating your children. Stop reading lightweight books and people telling what books they're reading, and those books are not going to help you at this time. You have to read about what happened 4 years ago. You have to read about the French Revolution and all the revolutions in the world, the Russian Revolution, right? The American Revolution and the Asian Revolution, and compare and contrast and see how different powers, from behind, and also, visible powers were working to overthrow our freedoms and to enslave humanity. I think we're chatting too much about the transatlantic slavery right now, racialized slavery. We must understand that the agenda. Thank you very much for joining.